Imagine spending months or maybe even years just anonymously hunting someone on the internet's most toxic
Yeah.
forums.
Right.
Like, you feel invincible, you're behind the screen name, you think you're untouchable, and you decide, okay, I'm going to escalate this.
You're going all in.
Exactly. You post their real name, their Facebook profile, their public court records, and then just to really twist the knife, you post a photograph of their 7-year-old child.
Which is just, yeah.
And you hit send, and you just sit back waiting for this digital mob to do its work. But then, literally less than 24 hours later, your phone buzzes.
Oh, man.
And you realize that exact same forum didn't just go after your target. They turned around and they published your real legal name,
Yeah.
your physical home address, your personal phone numbers. Like, your entire life is just dragged out into the exact same spotlight you just turned on someone else.
It's a stunning collapse of the illusion of control, honestly.
Totally. And today, we're looking at this terrifyingly flawless mechanism, really.
Yeah.
How a predator becomes prey in exactly one day.
Because people operate in these spaces under the assumption that the screen is like a one-way mirror.
Right.
They think they can see out, they can attack, but no one can see in. And what we're examining today just completely shatters that illusion.
It really does. And we are doing it by looking at something incredibly microscopic, which I think is what makes this so fascinating for a deep dive. Our mission today is to deconstruct the anatomy of an online harassment feedback loop. But we aren't looking at, years and years of data to do this.
No, it's very specific.
Very specific. We're looking at a highly analytical breakdown of just 2 internet forum screenshots.
2 images.
That is it. 2 images from May 2022. But embedded within those 2 images is basically the entire genetic code of how online escalation works.
Right, how boundaries are obliterated and how digital ecosystems eventually consume the very people who feed them.
Exactly. So we're looking at a user named Tami J. Hess, who was operating at the time under the alias CrazyAsHell. And we're basically watching a timeline unfold at breakneck speed.
And right away, we really have to talk about that speed. Because the velocity of the retaliation is the true focal point here.
Yeah.
In the physical world, cause and effect usually have, some friction.
Like, it takes a minute.
Right. If you start a rumor in a small town, it takes time to circulate, time for the backlash to build, time for people to react to it.
But not here.
Not here. In the specific digital ecosystem we're analyzing today, that friction is 0. It took one single rotation of the Earth for someone to go from sitting in a digital sniper's nest to being caught completely out in the open.
Which is wild. Now, for you listening right now, I want to set a very clear boundary before we wade into all this.
It's important.
Because we're about to talk about doxing. We are talking about internet drama, toxic forums, personal exposure.
Yeah.
But our goal here is entirely forensic. Like, we are not here to take sides. We aren't here to litigate whatever deeply messy underlying conflict was happening between these people.
No, not at all.
We are just acting as observers, looking purely at the mechanics of the escalation as they are documented in this specific analysis we have.
We're dissecting the machine, not judging the gears.
Exactly. Perfect way to say it. So let's go back to May 7, 2022, the inciting incident. A post goes up on a platform called OnionFarms.
Right.
Now, I want to pause before we even get to the content of the post because we really can't understand what happens next unless we understand what OnionFarms actually is, right?
And that is critical. You cannot divorce the action from the environment here.
Right.
OnionFarms isn't just a message board like Reddit, and it isn't a social media platform like X or Facebook. It is a highly specialized environment that is architected entirely around the concept of collective mockery and targeted harassment.
There's an engine for it.
Exactly. And the specific terminology they use for this is building lolcow threads.
Right. And for anyone lucky enough to have avoided that corner of the internet, a lolcow is basically someone who is theoretically being, milked for laughs.
Right.
But it's never just laughs. It is a systematic dehumanization. You are designated as a target, and the community's entire goal is to extract entertainment from your distress, your personal life, your failures.
It gamifies harassment. And because it's gamified, there's a currency involved. The currency on a site like OnionFarms is new information, fresh meat.
Yeah.
If you're a user on that site, You gain status by bringing in new, increasingly invasive details about the target. It's this escalating arms race of privacy violations.
So it's like a panopticon, but instead of one guard watching all the prisoners are actively trying to shine floodlights on each other to, like, impress the void.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the May 7th post.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So the account CrazyAsHell, which the text identifies through a subsequent reciprocal screenshot as Tami J. Hess, steps up to provide some of that currency.
Right.
She takes aim at a man named William Orth, referring to him as Will, and she doesn't just mention him casually. She frames him using highly derisive, contemptuous language. Specifically, she labels him as another woman's, Dana's, quote, fuck toy and simp.
Which, I mean, that immediately sets the tone. She's not just documenting a reality here.
Not at all.
She is trying to humiliate him. She is actively trying to feed him to the machinery of this forum.
Yes.
But she doesn't stop at the insult. And this is where the action shifts from just being toxic into being actively dangerous.
Right, the escalation.
Yeah, because she publicly posts his real name Facebook profile links. She essentially points the mob directly at his digital front door.
And I really want to focus on the intent there.
Yeah.
Because the text makes a very clear distinction about her behavior here.
Okay.
By dropping real name social profiles into a lolcow thread, she's engaging in a highly calculated move.
Right.
This is classic personal exposure and targeting. She is trying to weaponize the user base of Kiwi Farms against a private individual.
But see, I read the breakdown of this May 7th post, and part of me just thinks, if you are operating on a site known for destroying people's lives, and you drop a real person's Facebook link into the mix, you have to know you are painting a target on your own back too, right?
You would think so.
Like, the arrogance it takes to think you can direct a weapon like that and not get your own hands dirty. It feels like throwing a flare onto a dark battlefield to illuminate someone else, and just not realizing the flare also highlights exactly where you're standing.
That's a great analogy. But the psychology of these forums often breeds this bizarre sense of invulnerability.
How so?
Well, when you're anonymous or operating under a pseudonym like CrazyAsHell, you feel unmoored from physical consequences.
Right, because nobody knows who you are.
Exactly. You view the target as a character in a reality show, and you view yourself as the untouchable audience. The underestimation of the environment is just staggering.
Yeah.
She genuinely seemed to believe she was a spectator throwing tomatoes, not realizing she was standing right on the stage with everyone else.
Well, and she doesn't just throw tomatoes, she throws hand grenades.
She really does.
Because if we're tracking the escalation here, level 1 is the insult, level 2 is the Facebook profile. But level 3, this is where the text flags a massive crossing of conventional boundaries. Moving into what it specifically calls doxing adjacent behavior. What exactly does she do next?
She brings a child into it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. The post attaches and discusses a photograph of Will Orth's daughter, a child who was roughly 7 or 8 years old at the time.
Wow.
And Hess writes that the mother, quote, needs to keep that child away from DD.
Okay, let's unpack that sentence, because the context here is vital, even if the specific identities are kind of murky.
Right. The document doesn't explicitly spell out who or what DD is in this context.
Right.
But the overarching implication is pretty clear. It's a directive regarding custody, child safety, or family proximity.
Yeah.
But frankly, the specific identity of DD is secondary to the primary violation here.
The violation being that a 7-year-old child is now fodder for a harassment board.
Exactly. This is the moment the post pivots from an ugly internet squabble between participating adults into something vastly more destructive.
Yeah, that's a huge line to cross.
It really is. Bringing a non-participating minor into an ecosystem built on collective mockery is a massive escalation.
Absolutely.
It breaks the fundamental unspoken rule, even in many toxic spaces, which is you don't go after the kids.
Right.
By putting a child's face and custody-adjacent drama onto Kiwi Farms, she signals to the community that absolutely no one is off limits. There is no floor.
You know, if you were listening to this right now on your commute or while doing dishes, I really want you to visualize that.
It's dark.
You have a forum designed to systematically ruin people. And someone decides that a 7-year-old's photograph is acceptable ammunition to score points against someone they don't like.
It's chilling.
It really is. But the thing is, she still doesn't stop there.
No, she keeps going.
She layers on another attack vector. The text shows she then moves on to mock his legal and financial history, court dates, unpaid fines, and the likelihood of another arrest warrant.
She pivots from family exposure to legal and financial vulnerability. She's trying to systematically dismantle every pillar of this person's privacy and dignity.
Okay, I have to stop you there for a second,
Sure.
because I want to play devil's advocate. If we are talking about court dates, unpaid fines, arrest warrants, aren't those technically public records?
Yes.
Like, if I walk down to the county courthouse or I log into a municipal database, I can find that information.
You can?
A journalist can look that up and publish it. So why does this analysis flag this specifically as a severe wrongdoing? I mean, it's public info.
I am so glad you brought that up because that is exactly the defense that people in these forums use to justify their behavior.
Right. They say, I'm just stating facts.
Exactly. They claim they are just reporting facts.
Exact.
But treating this like journalism entirely misses the reality of the ecosystem she's in. The document we are analyzing zeroes in on this exact distinction. It is not about the availability of the information, it's about the weaponization of it.
The weaponization. Explain that a bit more. How does a public record become a weapon?
It really comes down to context and intent.
Okay.
The document explicitly calls this out as treating public records as, quote, gotcha content.
Gotcha content.
Right. If a journalist publishes an arrest warrant for a mayor, that is a neutral public record discussion serving the public interest.
Sure.
But when you take the obscure unpaid fines of a private citizen and you drop them into a lolcow thread specifically designed for harassment.
Alongside pictures of a kid.
Exactly. Alongside pictures of a 7-year-old child and insults about being a fuck toy, the context obliterates any claim to neutrality.
So it's basically the difference between, like, a town crier reading a legal notice and a mob printing that legal notice on a brick and throwing it through your front window.
That is a phenomenal analogy.
Yes.
The information is the same, but the delivery mechanism transforms it into an instrument of abuse. The mockery inherent in the harassment forum changes the fundamental nature of the public record. It is no longer an administrative fact. It is a tool for inflicted humiliation.
So just to lock in the reality of May 7th, we have the initial strike. Tami J. Hess, operating as CrazyAsHell, completely crosses the Rubicon.
She does.
She posts real names, Facebook links, weaponizes public court records, and most egregiously involves a 7-year-old child. She is effectively shouted into the darkest, most volatile cavern on the internet. And what happens next is what makes this entire case study so vital.
Right.
Because the echo that comes back isn't an echo at all, it's a firing squad.
Because the architecture of these forums dictates that extreme escalation invites extreme disproportionate retaliation.
Yeah.
When you signal to a mob that you are willing to fight dirty, the mob doesn't respect your boundaries. It absorbs your tactics.
So we move to May 8th, literally less than 24 hours later. The target isn't Will anymore. The target is the person who threw the first punch. What exactly happens on May 8th?
The very next day, a mirror thread, basically a reciprocal move, appears on a different platform called OnionFarms.
Okay.
OnionFarms operates in a similar, often competing, toxic space to Kiwi Farms.
Right.
And this post executes a devastating counterstrike.
Yeah.
It directly and unequivocally outs the user CrazyAsHell as Tami J. Hess.
So her pseudonym is just gone, just like that.
Evaporated instantly. And the retaliation isn't just a name.
Oh, boy.
The data dump is breathtakingly extensive. The text lists exactly what was exposed. We're talking her physical home address, her personal phone numbers, her exact age, her YouTube activity, and her prior address history.
You know, earlier I compared it to throwing a flare to illuminate someone else, and the flare illuminates you. But that really doesn't capture the asymmetry here.
No, it doesn't.
She posted his Facebook profile and a court fine. They posted where she sleeps at night. They posted the number that rings in her pocket. This is a massive, terrifying escalation in physical severity.
It is the defining characteristic of asymmetrical warfare online. You might think you are engaging in a contained skirmish by posting a social media link, but the ecosystem will always return fire with overwhelming disproportionate force.
Because there are no rules.
Exactly. A Facebook link is digital exposure. A physical address and a phone number represent a direct threat to your physical safety in the real world.
Yeah, that crosses over into real life.
It bridges the gap between the screen and the front door.
It's the difference between someone yelling at you from across the street and someone sliding a note under your bedroom door.
Absolutely.
It is deeply intimate and incredibly violating. But what I find so fascinating and frankly terrifying about this reciprocal strike is the justification the retaliator uses.
Right, the rationale.
The person who doxed her didn't just dump the info. They included a rationale.
Yes. The retaliation on OnionFarms explicitly frames Hess as the one who, quote, tipped her hand.
Tipped her hand. That phrasing is so incredibly telling to me.
It really is.
It implies a game, like a very sick, high-stakes game. And by playing a certain card, by posting the child, by posting the court records, she agreed to the stakes of the game.
That is exactly the logic of the retaliator.
Right.
By engaging in doxing adjacent behavior herself, she signaled to the entire ecosystem that she was a willing and active participant in that specific type of warfare.
Yeah.
The retaliator felt entirely morally justified. In their mind, they weren't attacking an innocent bystander. They were simply playing the cards that she had already dealt.
She opted in.
She opted in. She established the rules of engagement on May 7th, and on May 8th, the forum simply played by her rules.
The forum essentially says, oh, we are exposing families and real identities now. Great, here is yours.
Yep.
It only knows escalation.
Yeah.
And I think this brings us to what is really the true philosophical core of this entire document we're looking at. We've looked at the timeline, May 7th provocation, May 8th destruction. But now the analysis kind of zooms out. It stops looking at just the two screenshots and starts looking at the architecture of the minds that create them. It dives into this inescapable feedback loop of online harassment.
And this is where the analysis transcends being just, a recounting of internet trauma, and it becomes a genuine psychological study.
Yeah.
The text identifies the core wrongdoing not just as the specific mechanical acts of doxing, but as the broader behavioral pattern.
The pattern itself.
The broadcasting of real identities and family details for mockery, which the document brilliantly terms research theater.
Research theater. I want us to really sit with that phrase for a second because it is so evocative and I feel like it explains so much about the modern internet.
It does.
I'm asking you, the listener, to really think about the content you consume online. Imagine someone posting a photo of a 7-year-old child in a harassment forum, mocking the parents, digging through their unpaid municipal fines, and trying to pass that off to the world as research. It is a performance. It's theater meant for an audience of internet trolls, dressed up in a lab coat to look like legitimate investigation.
It is the ultimate psychological mechanism for cognitive dissonance.
How do you mean?
Well, research theater is how malicious actors justify their abhorrent behavior to themselves and to their community. If they admit they're just bullying a child and harassing a private citizen, they have to view themselves as the villain.
Right. Nobody wants to be the bad guy.
Exactly. But by framing the exposure of a child and the mockery of unpaid fines as documentation or archiving or investigating, they create this completely artificial veneer of legitimacy.
It allows them to participate in a digital mob while pretending to be like digital journalists.
Exactly.
It's a way to feel righteous while doing something deeply unethical. And you see this everywhere now. People claiming they're holding someone accountable when all they're actually doing is trying to destroy them for entertainment.
Precisely. The language of accountability has been entirely co-opted by the language of harassment.
That is a great way to put it.
And the source text directly connects this concept of research theater to the inevitable feedback loop that caught Hess. The text explicitly states, once you start naming names and attaching photos of relatives on those boards, the same tools get turned around on them.
The tragedy and the brutal irony of this situation is that Tami J. Hess actively fed the exact ecosystem that was then used to dismantle her own privacy.
Yeah.
It's like she spent all day building a guillotine in the town square, testing the blade, showing everyone how well it works, and then was absolutely shocked when the crowd decided she was the next one they wanted to march up the steps.
Because the tools of exposure are entirely agnostic.
Agnostic, right.
A doxing forum doesn't have loyalty. It doesn't care who is holding the weapon. It only cares that the weapon is being fired.
Right.
When you validate the tactics of a harassment board by using them against your enemies, you validate those exact same tactics being used against you. You are normalizing the violation.
Yeah.
The text refers to this as a mutual cycle. The ecosystem will always, inevitably, apply the same intense scrutiny to the user that the user was willing to apply to their target.
Which is exactly what happened. She used the forum to expose Will Orff, and the forum immediately turned around and exposed her. It's this closed, vicious, perfectly efficient loop.
And it speaks to the inherent instability of trying to control a mob.
Yeah.
You cannot harness chaos.
Yeah.
You can point it in a direction for a moment, but the moment you drop your guard or the moment the mob gets bored of the target,
They turn around.
they will look for the nearest source of entertainment.
Yeah.
And often, the person standing right next to them holding the megaphone is the easiest target.
It's just so dangerous. But as we look at this text, there is a really fascinating final section that I think elevates this document from a simple timeline into like a masterclass in critical thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in the world of internet drama, things get muddy really fast. People love to take one piece of evidence and stretch it to cover a million different rumors.
Right, they conflate everything.
Exactly. But we've analyzed this vicious cycle, and the text ends with a very careful, incredibly methodical clarification about what these two screenshots actually prove, and more importantly, what they strictly do not prove regarding the broader lore surrounding Tami J. Hess.
This is where the analytical rigor of the document really shines, and it's why it's such a valuable case study. In the messy, chaotic world of internet drama, especially concerning figures who have been entrenched in these communities for years, people constantly conflate issues.
Oh, yeah, they lump it all together.
They use one confirmed piece of evidence to try and legitimize a dozen completely unrelated, unproven rumors. They say, well, she did X, so she definitely did Y and Z.
Right.
This document categorically refuses to play that game.
Right, it draws a hard line in the sand. So what does it explicitly rule out? What is it saying we cannot learn from May 7th and May 8th?
The source explicitly states that these 2022 posts do not prove every allegation that is circulated about her in later years. It actually lists the rumors it is refusing to validate. It states that these screenshots do not prove rumors about bankruptcies.
Okay.
They do not prove rumors about unpaid workers. They do not prove various streaming dramas. And they do not prove allegations regarding platform reports or getting other creators banned.
Okay, wait. This is where I struggle a bit and where I think a lot of people might get tripped up.
Sure.
If this text intentionally distances itself from the bankruptcies, the unpaid workers, the stream drama, basically all the really explosive stuff that usually drives internet gossip,
Yeah.
why does the author care so much about these two screenshots? Like, why dedicate this intense forensic level of analysis to a random 2-day exchange in 2022 if it doesn't prove the big rumors?
It's a great question, and it gets to the heart of epistemology, basically how we know what we know.
Right.
The source cares because while these screenshots don't prove the surrounding noise, they prove something much more foundational. The text states that these screenshots do show, in her own 2022 forum activity, a concrete, documentable willingness to engage in personal exposure and child-adjacent commentary.
Ah, it establishes character. It establishes precedent written in her own digital ink.
Exactly. It establishes a documentable pattern of behavior within a specific time frame.
Wow.
It separates the undeniable self-authored facts from the swirling internet hearsay. The source is essentially arguing we don't need to rely on murky, unverified rumors about unpaid workers or bankruptcies to criticize her behavior or understand her character.
They have her own words.
We have her own action. We have a time-stamped record documenting her willingness to weaponize a child's image and a private citizen's court records for the sake of forum entertainment.
So it anchors the criticism entirely in reality. It's saying, look, forget the swirling vortex of internet gossip. That stuff is a distraction. Just look at this one specific action on this one specific day.
Look at what she did.
Right. Look at what she felt comfortable doing to another human being. And look at the immediate brutal reaction of the environment she was playing in. It is an absolute masterclass in separating signal from noise.
It is. And by doing so, the document prevents its own analysis from degrading into the very research theater it is critiquing.
Oh, wow. That is a brilliant point.
Right. If the author of this text took these screenshots and used them to claim, see, this proves she went bankrupt and didn't pay her workers.
They'd be doing the same thing.
Exactly. The author would be engaging in research theater. They would be dressing up a smear campaign as investigation.
Yeah.
But by strictly bounding its conclusions only to what is visibly verifiable in the screenshots, the source maintains its total integrity.
It proves one thing and one thing only.
That she willfully participated in the toxic cycle that ultimately consumed her privacy.
It holds a mirror up to the behavior without becoming the behavior itself.
Precisely. It is a rare example of restraint in a digital world that usually demands constant escalation.
So, to recap the journey we've taken on this deep dive today, we started by looking at a malicious post on May 7th, a post dripping with contempt, carefully disguised as research for an audience of trolls. We watched as fundamental human boundaries were crossed. dragging a 7-year-old child into the crosshairs and weaponizing municipal court documents to strip a man of his dignity.
It's heavy stuff.
It really is. We explored the delusion of anonymity, this arrogance of thinking you can wield the internet as a weapon without cutting your own hands.
Right.
And then we witnessed the inevitable, devastating consequence. The reciprocal strike on May 8th, where the very same community she tried to entertain turned on her, broadcasting her physical address and phone numbers to the world in a terrifying escalation of asymmetrical warfare.
Which is just, yeah.
The document reveals an ecosystem where the very tools you use to attack are guaranteed, with zero friction and zero delay to ensure your own absolute exposure.
It is a closed loop of mutually assured destruction. The mechanism is flawless. It is impartial, and it is brutal in its efficiency.
Yeah.
You cannot feed the beast without eventually ending up on the menu.
And for you listening to this right now, maybe you're pulling into your driveway or finishing up a run, I think this is a stark, undeniable reminder about the reality of digital footprints and the absolute illusion of anonymity.
So true.
Engaging in toxic, escalatory online spaces, thinking you are safe because you have an avatar and a screen name, it carries an inherent unavoidable risk.
Absolutely.
The community's total lack of boundaries will eventually and rapidly apply to you. You cannot control a fire once you've started it in a dry forest. The wind will eventually shift.
Which leaves us with a critical and I think deeply necessary thought to mull over, building on that brilliant concept of research theater.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because we see it everywhere now,
Yeah.
not just on obscure forums, but on mainstream platforms. So much of modern online harassment is masked as research or disguised under the noble banner of holding people accountable.
Yeah, that happens constantly.
So the question for you is, how can you, as a daily consumer of digital information, tell the difference?
That is the million-dollar question.
How do you distinguish between genuine public interest journalism, someone actually trying to inform the public and research theater designed just to entertain a mob?
Right.
When does documentation stop being informative and cross the line into mutually assured destruction?
I think about that every time I open an app now, honestly. Are we looking for truth or are we just looking for a target?
Exactly.
That is the question we all have to navigate in this ecosystem. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We'll leave you to think on that.